So I'm on the red carpet, and then this guy goes, Blake, your tweets are amazing.
Wait, what?
Right? And I was like, wait, what? Excuse me?
Yeah,
and he was like, your tweets are amazing. And I was like, are we saying that? Like, is this, like, have you been on Google?
They said she was America's sweetheart, but behind the glossy photos and the carefully crafted lies, the mask is cracking wide open. Blake Lively, the woman worshipped on red carpets, is now drowning in a storm of her own making as the truth rips. Through her empire, exposing the shameless tactics, the desperate cover-ups, and the ruthless games that her team thought would never see the light of day. But tonight, that illusion shatters, and the world will see the side of Blake Lively. She never wanted you to know. Blake Lively, once praised as the perfect Hollywood dream, has now become the center of one of the darkest scandals the industry has ever witnessed, and people everywhere are left gasping in disbelief because the truth is far more twisted than the fairy tale she and her powerful publicist spent years fabricating. They wanted you to see her as flawless, untouchable, a goddess with a perfect marriage, a spotless reputation, and a golden career. But underneath that carefully polished surface was a machine of manipulation, lies, and ruthless tactics that are now unraveling in real time. And what makes this even more horrifying is how deep those lies go, and how many people were deceived by them because it was never about art or talent. It was about control. It was about manufacturing a perfect image while burying anything that could crack that illusion. And every move was calculated. Every headline was engineered. Every photo was staged to make sure the world kept worshipping the fantasy while the truth stayed hidden behind locked doors. But here is where everything collapses. Because when a lie is built too high, when a tower of deception grows too tall, it will eventually fall. And Blake Lively's tower is now crashing down, and the sound is echoing across Hollywood louder than anyone could have imagined. We are not talking about small mistakes or innocent oversights. We are talking about deliberate cover-ups, ruthless strategies, and carefully planned attacks on anyone who dared to question her image. And the most shocking part is how many times they almost got away with it. Because the machine of Hollywood protects its darlings until the moment it cannot anymore. And right now that moment has arrived, Blake and her team have been exposed, and the receipts are flooding in, and what they reveal will leave you shaken to your core. Because these are not accidents. They are not coincidences. They are decisions made with full intent to deceive and manipulate. And every time you thought you were watching a heartwarming interview or a glamorous appearance, you were actually witnessing a performance designed to keep you hooked, while the darker truth stayed buried, but lies cannot stay buried forever. They resurface. They claw their way back to the light, and when they do, they burn everything in their path. And that is exactly what is happening. Now the so-called America's sweetheart is unraveling in front of our eyes, and her publicist, once seen as the mastermind behind her flawless rise, is now exposed as the architect of the greatest Hollywood deception of this decade, and the anger is real. People feel betrayed, fans feel used, and the industry itself is stunned because no one expected the cracks to show this soon. No one believed the carefully guarded lies would collapse this violently, but they did, and the fallout is only beginning. And as you hear what comes next, you will realize that this story is not just about one celebrity. It is about the ruthless machinery of fame that eats truth for breakfast and spits out illusions for the world to consume. And when that machine is exposed, when its lies are torn apart, the entire empire trembles and the people behind it are forced to face a storm they cannot control the deeper. You look into the scandal surrounding Blake Lively, the more horrifying the truth becomes, because what is now unraveling is not a random series of events. It is a carefully orchestrated web of deceit, woven by her publicist and sustained by an industry that values profit and power above truth. And what people are finally realizing is that every detail of her career was designed with ruthless precision, from the roles she was pushed into to the headlines that praised her to the staged pap photos that created illusions of perfection. Nothing was natural. Nothing was authentic. And every time someone dared to question it, they were silenced and pushed aside with threats, whispers, and manipulation. Because Blake Lively was not just an actress, she was a product. And her publicist treated her as the ultimate commodity to be sold packaged and marketed to the world at any cost. And what shocks people most is the level of cruelty behind the curtain. While fans adored the glamorous image, insiders were suffocating under the weight of lies, because behind every glittering red carpet moment was a story of someone being shut down, of someone being discarded, of someone being told their truth would destroy them, and the hypocrisy burns like fire. because the same team that branded her as a role model of honesty and empowerment were the same people suffocating others to maintain their narrative. But what happens when those suffocated voices rise? What happens when the truth begins to claw its way out after years of being buried? It creates a storm so violent that no publicist, no carefully written statement, no spin doctor can stop it anymore. And that is the exact storm now. Swallowing Blake Lively's empire because the receipts are here, the testimonies are surfacing, and the internet is refusing to look away this time. Because fans who once adored her are now digging deep, demanding answers, uncovering inconsistencies, and piecing together the puzzle that her team thought they could control forever. And the rage is palpable because people hate being lied to. They hate being manipulated. They hate being treated like fools. And that is exactly what her publicist has done for years, spinning lies, creating illusions, fabricating stories to keep her at the top. But the house of cards is falling piece by piece. And what shocks me most is the arrogance they had, the belief that they could fool the entire world indefinitely, as if people would never notice, as if fans would never question, as if the truth would never escape, but truth always finds a way. It seeps through cracks, it slips through shadows, it emerges stronger the more it is buried, and once it explodes into the light. There is no turning back, and what we are witnessing now is not just the exposure of Blake Lively, it is the exposure of Hollywood's dirtiest secret. The way fame is manufactured through lies, manipulation, and ruthless image control. And now, with every revelation, with every shocking detail, more people are realizing how deep this deception went, and the fury is spreading like wildfire. And when fury meets truth, it becomes unstoppable. And no celebrity, no publicist, no industry machine can silence it anymore. And what makes this even more heartbreaking is how many innocent fans believed the fantasy, pouring their admiration, their loyalty, their hearts into someone who never existed because the Blake they loved was not real. She was manufactured, and the betrayal cuts deep, and once betrayal is felt, it cannot be erased. It lingers, it haunts it, fuels anger and disappointment until the very foundation of trust crumbles. And right now, the foundation has collapsed, leaving only rubble, lies, and rage behind. And as this rubble is exposed to the world, the shocking question remains: how far did they go to protect the lie? How many people were hurt? How many lives were destroyed? And how many secrets still remain, hidden, waiting to be revealed in the next wave of shocking truth? As the storm grows louder and the walls around Blake Lively's empire begin to collapse, the most disturbing part of this scandal is not just the lies themselves, but the way they were weaponized against anyone who threatened to expose the truth. Because this was never just about hiding embarrassing details. This was about silencing voices, crushing careers, and ensuring that anyone who dared to question the illusion would be destroyed before their words could reach the public and the lengths they went to are nothing short of chilling, because insiders now speak of threats of intimidation, of smear campaigns designed to ruin reputations, so that Blake could keep shining in the spotlight without anyone ever seeing the darkness lurking beneath the surface, and the hypocrisy drips from every detail. Because while she preached empowerment and honesty, her team was pulling strings behind closed doors, spinning narratives and controlling media cycles to ensure her name stayed clean. And what makes this even more shocking is how many major outlets played along, turning a blind eye to the inconsistencies, because Hollywood loves a golden girl, and Blake was the perfect symbol of everything they wanted to sell: beauty, charm, a picture, perfect family, and a career that seemed unstoppable. But now those same outlets are scrambling to rewrite history, because the cracks are impossible to ignore, and the facade has shattered too violently to repair, and the betrayal burns deep because fans realize that every smile was calculated, every headline was engineered, every supposed coincidence was a script written to fool them, and the anger that rises from that betrayal is like fire, unstoppable and all-consuming, because when people give their loyalty, they expect truth. And when truth is replaced with lies, that loyalty transforms into rage, and that rage is now aimed like a weapon at the empire of deception that thought it could stand forever. But what no one in Blake Lively's camp expected was that the internet itself would become the ultimate investigator, piecing together evidence, creating timelines, exposing contradictions that no glossy statement could erase. And this is where the story twists into something even darker, because once lies are exposed, people begin to question everything: every past interview, every award, every glowing article. And when those pieces are scrutinized, the pattern becomes undeniable. Manipulation upon manipulation, lie upon lie, illusion upon illusion, until the very idea of Blake Lively as a wholesome, beloved figure collapses into dust. And what is left is not admiration, but suspicion. Not love, but disdain. Not respect, but pure contempt for how long the truth was buried and how arrogantly it was hidden. And what makes this destruction even more dramatic is the way her publicist operated with ruthless efficiency, turning gossip into weapons crafting diversions when scandals threatened to surface, feeding false stories to shift attention elsewhere, all while building the illusion of perfection around Blake. And it worked for years until the dam finally cracked. And once it cracked, the flood of truth was unstoppable, drowning everything in its path, because truth is relentless. It does not care about fame. It does not care about reputation. It does not care about carefully written press releases. It only cares about being seen. And now it is seen. And the sight is ugly, shocking, and unforgettable. And as fans and critics alike watch this collapse unfold in real time, the question that haunts everyone is how much more remains hidden. What other lies will surface, and how much darker can this scandal get? Because if history has shown us anything, it is that when one lie is exposed, dozens more are waiting behind it, ready to explode. And every explosion pulls Blake further down from the pedestal she once ruled, from turning admiration into hatred and fantasy into nightmare. And this nightmare has no ending in sight, because the more you dig, the deeper it gets, and the more shocking it becomes. And people cannot look away, because drama like this is both horrifying and addictive. And once you are pulled in, you cannot escape. You want to know more. You need to know more. And that is exactly why this scandal will not fade. It will grow. It will loop in waves of revelation, shocking detail after shocking detail, until the entire empire of lies is nothing but ashes. The collapse of Blake Lively's empire is no longer a slow unraveling. It is a full-scale implosion. And the most terrifying part is how fast the image once seen as untouchable has disintegrated into dust, because every day new revelations come forward. Every hour, another piece of the puzzle is exposed. And what once felt like rumor now feels like undeniable truth. And the shocking part is not just the exposure itself, but the way people now speak freely. The whispers that once filled back rooms and dark corners of Hollywood are now loud voices screaming across social media, interviews, leaks, and testimonies, painting a picture so sinister that even her most loyal defenders are forced into silence. And the deeper this spiral goes, the more sinister it becomes. Because what people are realizing is that this was never about one mistake or one bad choice. It was an empire of lies, a system of manipulation controlled by her publicist, designed to deceive fans, to silence critics, to crush anyone who dared stand against them. And now that the mask has fallen, people are seeing the ruthless machine that operated behind the smile. And it is horrifying, because this machine did not just protect Blake. It weaponized her fame against others. Insiders now tell stories of careers ruined by association of journalists, blacklisted for asking the wrong questions, of colleagues forced into silence under threat of losing everything, and the cruelty burns deeper than anyone expected, because the very image marketed as innocent and inspirational was built on the suffering of others. And that betrayal cuts deeper than any scandal could, because fans now see how their loyalty, their love, their admiration was used against them, manipulated into blind devotion for someone who was not real, who was never real. And the rage that follows betrayal is a beast impossible to contain. And that beast is now devouring everything in sight. Social media is ablaze with fury. Critics, our relentless insiders, are emboldened. And the more people dig, the more monstrous this empire appears to be, because for years it thrived on secrecy and fear. But once fear is broken, truth explodes, and now the explosion is deafening, unstoppable, all-consuming. And yet, even as the truth spreads, her team tries desperately to hold the illusion together. But every attempt, every carefully written statement, every staged appearance only fuels more suspicion, because no one believes them anymore. The trust is gone. The illusion is shattered. The fantasy is dead, and what remains is anger, betrayal, and contempt. And that contempt grows by the second, looping endlessly in the minds of fans who once adored her, because they replay every lie, every fake moment, every staged headline, and realize how long they were deceived. And the realization is brutal, crushing, and unforgettable. Because once people awaken to betrayal, they never forget it, they never forgive it, and they never let it fade. And that is why this scandal is not ending. It is only beginning, because once the cycle of truth and rage begins, it loops forever, feeding on itself, growing stronger with every revelation, until the very name Blake Lively is no longer remembered for beauty or talent, but for lies, manipulation, and disgrace. And the haunting part is that this was preventable. Had her publicist chosen truth over lies, had her empire chosen honesty over deception, but they chose greed, they chose control, they chose arrogance. And arrogance is always the downfall. It blinds people into believing they are untouchable, unstoppable, unbreakable, until the truth smashes through like a hammer, shattering everything they built in seconds. And that is the nightmare playing out now. A nightmare of their own making that no spin, no distraction, no silence can ever repair, because the world has seen the truth. And once truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. And that is the devastating loop that will haunt Blake Lively forever. As the fire of truth spreads uncontrollably, the destruction of Blake Lively's carefully built image transforms into a spectacle that no one can escape from. Because this is no longer just a scandal. It is a cultural earthquake shaking every corner of Hollywood, every circle of influence, every carefully crafted brand partnership. Because when the mask of lies falls, it does not fall quietly. It crashes and burns, dragging everything in its orbit into the flames. And what makes this collapse even more shocking is the way people who once stood beside her now distance themselves faster than lightning. Co-stars, producers, former allies, all scrambling to protect their own names, as if they know more, as if they fear that standing too close to her will expose their own secrets. And the silence of her inner circle is louder than words, because silence is never empty. It screams guilt, it screams fear, and it screams complicity. And fans now watch in disbelief as the same publicist who once boasted about controlling every narrative, every headline, every glowing feature now finds themselves powerless, drowning in the tidal wave of truth. Because the lies they planted have grown into monsters they can no longer control. And those monsters turn back to devour the very empire that fed them. And what is most terrifying is how the fans react, because the betrayal they feel is not temporary. It is permanent. It loops in their hearts like a wound that never heals, reminding them of every fake smile, every fabricated headline, every orchestrated drama that fooled them. And the rage is not limited to fans. It infects the media, it fuels critics, it energizes investigators. And suddenly Blake Lively is no longer a golden figure. She is the symbol of betrayal, of deception, of hypocrisy, and that symbol is toxic beyond repair. And the toxicity spreads like poison, staining every project, every endorsement, every memory tied to her name, and the once bright career becomes a graveyard of lost trust and shattered illusions. And yet the more it falls apart, the more the audience cannot look away, because destruction this dramatic is hypnotic. It pulls people deeper and deeper as each new revelation loops back to the same haunting realization that nothing was real. Nothing was honest. Nothing was pure. And the emotional chaos becomes unbearable as people wrestle with their own anger, their own guilt for believing the illusion for so long. And that guilt transforms into hatred. Hatred not just for Blake, but for the machine around her that thought it could manipulate the world forever, and that hatred loops endlessly, feeding on itself, amplifying with every new headline, every new leak, every whisper of another betrayal. And the spectacle intensifies when former insiders who were once silenced finally break free of fear, their voices pouring out like thunderous confessions, exposing layers of darkness that no one thought possible, confirming the worst suspicions and creating new ones, because every revelation feels like the tip of an iceberg, with far more horror hidden beneath the surface. And that suspense is unbearable because the audience knows more is coming, more truth, more lies, more betrayal waiting to explode. And the waiting itself becomes part of the torment, part of the endless loop that keeps people locked in, unable to turn away. And the deeper this spiral goes, the more haunting it becomes, because what once was admiration is now disgust. What once was love is now rage. What once was loyalty is now vengeance. And vengeance is a force that never sleeps, never forgives, never forgets. And so the destruction of Blake Lively's empire is not just a fall. It is an obliteration, a crushing wave that leaves nothing untouched, nothing spared. And the final twist of the knife is that the very publicist who thought they could control everything, who built the walls of lies around her, has now become the face of the downfall. Because when you build an empire of deception, you eventually become trapped inside it. And that trap has now snapped shut, crushing them all inside. And the world watches not with sympathy, but with fascination and fury. Because this is not tragedy. This is justice. This is the truth, finally breaking free after years of suffocation. And the truth is ruthless, relentless, unstoppable. It takes everything and leaves only ashes. And in those ashes, the legacy of Blake. Lively does not shine. It does not glow. It does. Not inspire, it haunts, it disgusts, it enrages, and that is the loop that will echo forever. End of this story is not an end at all because the truth about Blake Lively and her publicist has carved itself into the memory of everyone who witnessed this collapse, and the haunting part is that there is no going back, no repair, no redemption. Because once the curtain has been pulled, once the illusion has been shattered, the pieces can never be put back together. The betrayal is too deep, the anger too raw, the wounds too permanent. And so what remains is a legacy, not of beauty, not of inspiration, not of admiration, but of lies, of manipulation, of arrogance that spiraled into destruction, and the world will not forget. It will not let it fade. Because betrayal has a way of burning itself into history, looping endlessly with every mention of her name, every memory of her image, every headline that resurfaces. And the shocking part is how easily it all could have been avoided. How one choice, for truth over deception, could have preserved it all. But arrogance was stronger than honesty. Greed was stronger than loyalty. Lies were stronger than love. And so the collapse became inevitable, unstoppable. And now here we are, watching an empire of illusion turn into ashes. And while some may ask what comes next, the real answer is that nothing comes next. Because this story is already over. This career is already tainted. This image is already destroyed. And the only thing that lingers is the shadow of what could have been. And that shadow will follow Blake Lively, forever haunting every attempt at a comeback, every whisper of her name. Because truth once revealed can never be buried again. And that is the devastating loop the world will never stop replaying.